Everybody, here's where we're going to start. Hey, welcome Rachel Waters.
Thanks so much.
Oh my goodness. So I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions, just let you kind of share. Is that all right?
Totally.
I know we sat down and had coffee together, but that was just to get an idea of maybe some of the things that I would ask you. But
yeah.
The first question I asked you, and it was really interesting, I was like, how did you, because we know you as a spoken word, right, person that does closing prayers and you do these amazing things, but there's real connection to it. So how did you get your start in doing that? Like, have you always written poetry? Have you always loved that kind of thing? Or what was that like? How did you get started with that?
Wow, this is off to a great start. So I've always written, I've always enjoyed writing, I've always enjoyed English and getting it onto the page. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea I'd ever do it anywhere close to a microphone until one of my good friends invited me to Red Dirt's open mic after she saw that I'd written a Mother's Day poem for my mom.
Oh, okay.
And so she was like, oh, there's this open mic, you should come by. And I was like, okay. And I wrote 2 new pieces for it. I did not know what to expect, but I invited my parents. And I walked in there and the vibes were fine, the vibes were cool. I was like in a very, I'm gonna move Bob.
Yeah, that's okay, yeah.
I was in a very weird and difficult and sad time in my life when she invited me. And I was just going through a lot. And so decided to just write that out. And got up on a mic, and it was a fully, like, completely out of body experience. And I just remember like the hazy red lights and just like darkness in front of me. And then I did it, and something in me happened. And then I was like, okay, I might come back to this. And then I was very lonely at the time. Mm-hmm. And when I went into Red Dirt, I told myself, this is a new situation. This is out of your comfort zone. Please go into it with like as much confidence in yourself and being like as unafraid of that as possible. Because this is like a new opportunity to kind of start over in a new group of people. And anyways, so I did that. And then on Saturday, that following Saturday night, a few nights after open mic, I was laying in bed and I was like in my feelings and just feeling alone again. And the voice of God called out to me and was like, Rachel, go to church tomorrow. And I was like, no. And I was like, God, listen, I'm chill with never going to church again. I hope you're okay with that. Yeah. And they were like, okay, well, just consider it. And I was like, all right. And so I started Googling affirming churches in Oklahoma City, just in case. And found Simplicity, and y'all had like the most that appealed to me at the time. And so I was like, okay, Rachel/God, whatever is happening right now, if I feel like it in the morning when I wake up, I might check out Simplicity. So I woke up the next day, still felt like coming. And I drove here, and I got here early, and I sat in my car, and I did a little prayer, and I was like, hey, big guy. If you could, I want to walk in, and I want to feel welcome as I am, no questions asked. And if I get that, cool. If not, maybe this isn't the place I want to be. And then I walked in, and you were right there, and you were like, hey, I'm Israel, welcome. Here's everybody. Here. And I was like, okay, cool, welcome.
I took you around and introduced you to every single person.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay. And then whatever sermon, the first like month, not saying your sermons don't always slap, but the first month particularly, all of them punched me right in my feelings and my, like the things I had been processing those weeks were the things that you'd speak about. And I was like, okay, God, whatever. And anyways, wow. I really do love the Lord, y'all. I'm not trying to be
Well, but let's talk about that, because I think that you're probably touching on what a lot of us feel. Is like there's a sense, I think, for a lot of us, and maybe I feel this from you, is that because you grew up around church, right? Your parents are in ministry, so you
Yes.
grew, but you also, there was this disconnect. There was like at some point, it's like, man, like, why do I have to hate others? Like that is that kind of, so it's like, I understand when you're saying this, I know I do, maybe you do too, is like, I understand the thing is like, God saying, go to church, and you're like, yeah, that's so like you, God, to tell me to go to church, but you know that your people are really heinous, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not a good experience. So is that kind of, so you've always like loved God, the idea that God is love, but there's all this other stuff that seems to come with it and with church.
Yes, totally agree with that. I grew up Presbyterian. Both my parents have pastored. My mom still actively pastors, was confirmed in that church, baptized, yada, yada, yada. And through their viewpoint, I always understood like Jesus' example is kind of the way to live your life. I always have believed that God is love, and like love is God. And I told you I was asking like pretty deep theological questions from a young age. Like I remember around age 9, I was like, hey, Dad, is hell real? And he was like, I don't think so. Because why would a loving God damn someone for eternity for like a split second of
Life.
Yeah. And then I was like, okay, cool. Follow-up question. Gay people. What about that? And he was like,
And you're 9.
yeah, 9 or 10. And he was like, well, let's talk about whatever words in the Bible to talk about gay people.
Yeah. That are mistranslated.
Yes,
as
mistranslated.
homosexual.
And and he told me the root is, a man lying with a small child.
Right.
Way more closely related to pedophilia, nothing to do with gay people and loving relationships.
It's about
And I was like,
power differential and
Yeah.
struggle and power over type of stuff, not loving relationship between two people.
yeah. I got a lot of the good stuff, I
Yeah.
would say, from my parents and from the Presbyterian church. And then I lived in a town of less than 3,000 people, if you didn't know. And I met Jordan Jackson down the street from me living there. Yeah, we
They
go
both got out.
way back. We go way back.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And we still got it in us, I think. Anyways, so there are a lot of churches but a lot of conservatism. But beyond that, just like racism and sexism and homophobia, definitely transphobia, but all of it was a little bit hush hush too.
Right.
Because anyway, so it was like a lot of hate in the town, but also, I don't know, it was hard to navigate because those are the other people who were teaching me things. So I knew God was love, but also,
You knew the rules and the boundaries.
yeah, and
Right.
all the people who claim
Who's
to
in and
think
who's
that
out.
God is love, who go to church on Sundays, are also being hateful towards these other people.
Right.
And I'm just curious about that, and why.
Yeah.
And so that was confusing for me.
Yeah.
Very confusing for me.
Yeah. I know when we talked, you talked a lot about, and I don't know how much you want to go into it and everything, but you talked about, and I feel like kind of coming through that as a young person, you went into a real, like a whole season of your life that was very lonely, very depressed. You hit on it a little bit a couple of weeks ago in one of your spoken words that it hit a lot of us.
Yeah.
But this wasn't just like hey, things there's some disconnect between this and this, but I'm okay. But like it really, you hit some real darkness for a while. Is that okay to talk about?
100%. Because let's not stigmatize mental health or talking about it.
Yeah. Amen. Yes.
So from Cordell, I left Cordell and went to the University of Tulsa once I graduated high school for a couple years. My freshman year of college, I met the man that I would marry the month after I graduated college. And super quick marriage, super expedient divorce. And I will say, I have no ill feelings towards my ex-husband. He respected me, he cared for me, he loved for me. We just were very young. I was not in a well space to navigate a long-term relationship and didn't know how to make it work, didn't want to make it work. Anyways, nothing bad to say about him. After the divorce, I spiraled because I thought I had disappointed God, disappointed myself, disappointed my family, disappointed the whole church, disappointed him, disappointed his whole family. And I was basically like, you're a 22-year-old divorcee. No one's going to love you anymore. You're unworthy. And that kickstarted, I had already shown symptoms of depression and anxiety probably beginning in my senior year of high school, but kept it fairly under, chill, you can fake it. And this kickstarted a very deep, scary, traumatic time of my life, where I hopped from long-term relationship to long-term relationship that also were not good. And I gave everything I could to them without knowing how to take anything for myself. And I lived it got real dark. Ideations daily, living in filth, being filth because I couldn't do anything about it. Didn't know how to do anything, didn't even know how to start. I told Israel one time on Twitter, someone tweeted what's the best depression meal you've ever had? And I tweeted back, I said, one time I DoorDashed mashed potatoes because I was too depressed to cook anything and didn't have any clean, this was also, more than the character limit allowed, but I didn't have any clean dishes, and so when the mashed potatoes were delivered, they also forgot silverware, and so I didn't have any clean silverware, but I did have a bag of tortilla chips near my bed, and so ate the depression mashed potatoes with tortilla chips. And then that got 800 likes on Twitter.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah.
so I've been in
Some of us have been there, right? Greg Goldman I was telling you about him, the comedian. He has an amazing set that he talks about because he went into rehab for, I don't know, weeks or months for depression and ideation and stuff. And he says, I can tell if you're depressed if I look in your ice cream carton and there's fork. He goes, only depressed people eat ice cream with forks. That's how depressed we are. We can't even clean a spoon.
Yeah.
So anyways, but we were talking about it and you told me this. You're like, oh yeah, I have my depression mashed potato story.
Yeah, it's
And I'm not trying to make light of it, obviously.
No, I mean, sometimes you have, to cope, you can make light of it, but
I think a lot of us have been there.
Yeah, and so. I'm I can feel that, not in a a weird way or anything like that, but I know that we've all gone through our crap. And from that point on, there was, okay, I gotta be real with y'all. I have not heard the voice of God many times in my life. I mostly just call it myself or my subconscious. But one of the only other times that I, aside from coming here, heard the voice of God, I was in my depression bed, in my depression room, in my depression. And someone told me, you have to change something if you don't want to keep living like this. And you obviously don't want to keep living. So you either got to have to change something or so there was a shift and one specific moment of a mindset shift coming from beyond that made me want to start on the healing journey. And that took many years and is daily work and will never stop. And, but I was dealing with a lot of jealousy beyond my depression and anxiety, a lot of still feelings of unworthiness, a lot of just no one's gonna love me, I'm gonna be alone forever, yada, yada, yada. And I was taking a look at all the people on social media or in my life who were causing me jealousy or oh, I'm never going to amount to anything because look at these people, look at all these opportunities they have. And maybe it was God or maybe it was my own brain, I don't know. But I was like, Rachel, they had to put in some work to get there. And they didn't just lie in their beds and those things fell into their lap, which was a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
And so I started making very small, tiny, microscopic things and different routine changes and actions to try to make my life better.
Yeah.
And
Therapy?
Therapy, yes, I did therapy.
Would you say that that's what you said? Some interesting things about therapy.
Yes.
Is that, I mean, so I love hearing what you're saying, like these moments of recognizing, like, because I do think that that's a lot of times from beyond.
Yeah.
When you hear, it's like, you need to get up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that can sound like, because like if a friend or a parent came into your room and said, you know what, Rachel, you need to get up and just quit. You got to make a change if you're going to, and it's like, yeah, shut up. I know. Right.
Yeah, obviously.
But there is something different when you hear it and you're like, oh, I think I need to get up and brush my teeth today. Like that might be the step I need to take.
Right.
And then, because I don't think that you just leap into like, okay, now I'm on a healing journey. It's like, I brush my teeth today. Tomorrow I brush my teeth and make my bed. Tomorrow I wash the dishes in the sink. It's like, is that how it was kind of for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, nothing about healing is going to be overnight.
Yeah.
And it was sincerely such a long process, but like so worth it. Like I am in a spot right now where I am deeply in love with my life and like the people in
That's
it.
so awesome.
And like have snaps. And I know when I was so depressed and anxious and living in the emptiness, I was a shell of a human. I did not know anything about myself, didn't know what I liked, what I loved, what I even hated, couldn't tell you anything. And just lost complete sight of who I was. And that sucked, to be real with you. And I never want to go back to that point. And so I'm also right now, to brag, I am so secure in who I am and like proud of this person. And obviously I'm not perfect and I'm always going to have things to work on, and like no one's perfect and we can always try to have things to work on. But like I never thought I would be here when looking back as that person. Never thought I could be in love with life or feel good or have like an abundance of people who care about me or who I care about. Because I was so stuck in loneliness and uncertainty and afraid to do anything about it. So yeah, the first step in my own personal healing process was to start a gratitude list daily. And sometimes it was, today I'm grateful for my bed. Today I'm grateful for my dogs who I have to keep alive, so therefore I must remain alive. And then that kind of turned into like trying to notice a few more things that would bring me joy and trying to focus more on the joy so that I could add more to my gratitude list. And then I know this sounds kind of woo-woo. And then finding the joy turned into inner child work, because I feel like we are our most free, happy selves when we're experiencing childhood. And before the world gets our hands on us, we are the most pure versions of ourselves. And so I was like, what did I like to do as a child, as a kid, that brought me joy? So I love to make creative messes. I love to play outside. I love to cook. I love to, make art. So I started doing more of those things. And then that turned into reparenting and yada, yada, yada. And then a lot of just soul work, shadow work. Okay, not to brag, but my therapist, one time she told me, Rachel, it is rare for me to have any clients who do as much inner work as you do. And I don't even think that's necessarily a good thing because that means I'm in my head a lot. But like, it is, I know that it's changed my life, and I know that it makes my life better, and makes my ability to give to others a lot better. I was not a good friend when I was that person. Couldn't be a good friend, and I still have, my issues from time to time. Like I freaking canceled on chili night last night.
You're forgiven.
Thanks. But I am glad that the people in my life, because I've made so many new friends over the last few years between Simplicity and Red Dirt and like the circles within those circles.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that they get to know me now versus back then.
That's cool.
Yes, I'm talking
So
a lot.
cool. No, you're not. You're
Okay,
doing great.
okay.
You can talk. I have a feeling we could all just kind of hang out here all day, but we do. There's a game at 7. I guess that's when we
I'll
need
wrap
to be.
up by like
You guys
by like
are
5:30.
7, right? Okay, we're good. I do want to ask you about this. I asked you yesterday if this would be all right to talk about, but I think that one of the reasons I like to do conversations and have lots of different people up here and on the mic and on our YouTube, and stuff like that, is because I hear this all the time. I hear people that are either, especially LGBTQ, people that are women, people who are non-binary, and people who are of a different race than white, Caucasian here in America. I hear those people talk constantly about, I never saw anyone at church that was like me. I never heard someone that was, I never had a black teacher. I never heard a black preacher. I never heard a woman preach. I never had a gay person be able to teach. I never had, all of those things. So here's why I want to ask you this question, because I want people who listen to this or watch this or are here today, I want them to hear someone who is like them, being able to share their story, and their story is being told by the church, the entity that they're at, is that it's beautiful and it's valuable and it is radically needed. So I want you to talk really quickly as we end this about your own journey with sexuality and gender. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Talk to me about, because you were a little 9-year-old Rachel and I don't know if you even knew then like why you were asking that, but you were asking like, what about gay people? So what has been your kind of journey and your feeling about your journey with gender and sexuality with God? What is that like?
Ooh, okay.
That's a little question.
So I grew up riding the compulsory heterosexuality train really hard, and I had no real other examples around me to show me that queerness was even an option. There was, in my small town, I knew of one out kid who was a year younger than me, and he got teased to hell. And also in the town I grew up in, there were less than 1% of people of color, and those people of color were probably biracial. So I was around really white people, really straight people, seemingly that being the only option because otherwise you were talked down about for the entirety of my youth. And I remember just feeling a little different from like the other kids around me. And I was a tomboy growing up, and there was one time in like 9th grade I wore a skirt to school, and I was like, "Ooh, this doesn't feel right." And I was, maybe TMI, but like hyper aware of the girls in my locker room like changing around me, but also like averting my eyes so hard, and because I didn't want to be gay. And so I did a lot of repressing growing up because it wasn't, my parents didn't attack gay people or people of color. Like they were always very loving, but it also wasn't necessarily a conversation we had a lot at all.
Right.
Because that wasn't our reality. And so it took me, let's see, I didn't come out and when I first came out as queer, I use the term bisexual because at that I was 25 years old. I was divorced, and it took me all of those 25 years to realize that about myself because of how much repressing I did growing up. And it was literally, I was sitting in bed one day and my gut was screaming at me, Rachel, you're at least bi. Like, deal with it.
You're at least.
Admit it to yourself. And so I was like, fine, cool, okay, I hear you, back off, okay.
Yeah.
So then I like came out to my immediate family. They were very accepting, very chill overall. Started coming out to a few, and like, bless that, geez. And came out to friends slowly and surely. And then that turned into just pansexuality. I don't even know, whatever. We don't need to get too into it. But my gender questioning didn't really start happening until a few years after that. So I was probably 28 or 29 before, I'm 33 now, before I started thinking about gender. And I still don't necessarily claim the term non-binary. I told Israel, I like a they, them pronoun. I'm still fine with a she, her pronoun. But when someone asks me, I'm going to back up a tiny bit.
Sorry.
If you've never done improv, one of the first rules of doing improv is that you yes and your partner.
Yeah.
So they give you something to work with, and you take that and you run with it. You don't shut them down. Yeah. And so my gender, when someone asks me, are you a woman? I'm like, yes, and also not really, and a little more than that, with a little extra razzle dazzle, and add a they, them pronoun on there, please. So
I love it.
I like to be flexible, and I think that God made me in a way. I think God's the most non-binary thing to ever exist.
Yes. Amen.
Because I mean, like, how could they not be, honestly?
Right. If all of us are in God, then all of that is in God.
And also,
right?
like, yeah, there's this beautiful poem. I'm not going to reference it really correctly, but God made the day and the night, and the stars and the sky, and also the nebulas and the galaxies and the others and the aliens, like all the in-betweens of the main things, the binaries, God also made. And so when I think of myself as being a child of God, it's hard for me to exist in a way that's not kind of flowy and not and isn't very fluid. Like, I love the fluidity and like the playing around and the multitudes and because I think I'm supposed to be that way. Like, that's how I feel in my soul. That's how God made me to be, I believe. And so, like, why not play around with like the expanse of humanhood and soulness as much as you can in the physical frickin' flesh we have. And I have talked to a few friends about this, but to me, gender is so much more of a soul thing versus a physical parts thing. And that's a conversation for another time, but that's how it is for me. And I will never, I know that, let's see, there are like ways to be a man or a woman or whatever. But there's also not really, and there shouldn't be. And anyways, however God made us is like, should be celebrated fully.
I love that. Can we end there? Is that all right? Let's play around with it. Right? That's so good. Let's give Rachel a huge thank you.
Thank you.
You're awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.